I'm Justin.
I'm Frank.
I'm Tom.
And we're Plaid Lads.
Plaid Lads. Pladdington Laddingtons.
Schmaddingtons.
How's it going, fellers?
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that. Being called a feller. I wasn't ready to be called a feller right then.
I'm always ready. You got to be prepared. I was in the Cub Scouts. They teach you that.
Were you in the Cub Scouts?
I was also in the Cub Scouts.
Yeah.
What rank did you get to?
I don't fucking know. I did. My mom was the leader, Cub leader, and I was forced to be in it. She wanted me to make friends. She kept trying to do that. She put me in soccer. It was terrible.
Oh yeah. Same thing for me with baseball. And I got stuck in right field. And if you know baseball, that's where they stick the kids who can't play.
That's where they stick a Plaid Lads.
It's absolutely where they stick a Plaid
Now,
Lad.
did you continue on from Cub Scouts into Boy Scouts? Because I've never met anybody who looks more like an Eagle Scout.
Absolutely fucking not. I hated it. I hated camping. The one time we went camping, it was a bullshit camping where it was a campground where we all stayed in cabins. Like there wasn't even a tent set up.
Camping.
It wasn't even real camping.
That's just a romantic getaway.
Yeah, it was. But we did do the Cedar Water hike. Like we did this hike through Cedar Water.
Like through just walking along in a river.
Yes, and it was crazy because Cedar Water, like it gets, especially at the time of year we went. I think it was like late fall, so it was fucking freezing. And you're making children, little children, trudge through this freezing river water at the behest of adults.
Now, are you sure you weren't hijacked?
Sure I wasn't abused by the Yellow King? Like, I think so. Maybe I'm blocking out a horrible memory here.
Well, let's keep it blocked for now. Tom, do you have any experience with being forced to do things? No, you were a more well-adjusted, sociable kid, I would say, probably, right?
Nah, probably not. I was in the Boy Scouts.
I've seen adorable hockey photos though.
Yeah, I was in the right field of hockey.
What position is that?
I guess it's defense.
It's you're on snowman patrol.
No, this was roller hockey. There was no snow to be had.
Oh, not even ice hockey.
No, not even ice hockey. I was in the Boy Scouts for like 2 weeks. I was a little older, so I wasn't old. I was too old to be like a Cub Scout, and my neighbor / my mom's boss was like the leader guy. So it was like I was trying to like my best friend from when I was really little just moved away and it was traumatic. So I was trying to replace him and it just wasn't working. And so I went away to the camp and it was like a legit camp with like tents and shit. And I just basically sat in my tent eating Twizzlers until I faked having heat exhaustion to come home. And then my dad found me in the basement at home again playing GoldenEye 64. He's like, I thought you were at camp. And I was like, nope.
Nope.
Pass me a Twinkie.
I'm beating Jaws. I'm beating Jaws and Odd Job.
Yeah. You have to remember, I was also a little butterball. I was a little morbidly obese child.
I'm assuming we all were.
Sure.
Yes, Frank. Yes. Okay.
I was a little bit skinnier as a kid and became a little bit of butterball come middle school.
Oh, you're nouveau fat.
Yeah.
Nouveau fat.
We look down upon people like you.
Yeah. I started life very skinny. I got really fat when I was 10. And then I graduated high school and got really skinny again. And I think I've found the balance now.
Nice.
Where I'm just a little overweight.
I've been fat forever. Though that leads into something in our Feist conversation, which I'll save.
Oh yeah. Because I'm actually interested to see where that goes, because I don't know how a very pleasant autumnal indie album will relate to that, but let's go with it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be disturbing, folks.
Speaking of being young and fat and in Cub Scouts and other things, I've got a question for you fellas. What's going on?
And the award for best segue goes to
Justin. With,
What's going on?
Are we okay? I'm going to do it again.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
It's a little pitch.
I said, hey.
That was a little.
What's going on?
That was a little pitchier than last time.
It was a little bit here.
Splice the first one in.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Put the first one in the audio.
So what's going on? Okay, so we're on a nice little regular weekly kind of rotation now. So what's happened in the week of the last week?
Now, I have heard that Donald Trump murdered someone.
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. Although
Yeah.
although he is sort of, kind of, in a roundabout way, participating in the cover-up of a murder.
Yeah. So Frank, say his name.
Jamal Kashogghi.
Thank you. Was a dissident journalist from Saudi Arabia who was a contributor to the Washington Post, amongst a great many other things. An outspoken critic of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia being, of course, a regional ally in the Middle East to the United States, one with whom we have had a great many lucrative military deals, not to mention all the oil, and he done what turned up dead after being interrogated, you didn't see the air quotes, at the Saudi consulate in Turkey. And it is widely believed that he, during the course of that investigation, and I believe it's also verified by an audio recording collected by the Turkish, which was then independently verified by the New York Times, that indeed he was tortured to death, either intentionally or unintentionally, while being, quote, interrogated by the Saudi government. And it's they're trying to sweep it under the rug. We're not even really... We're sure, but for intents and purposes, we say he is still just disappeared at this moment. Disappeared.
Yeah, he's Schrodinger's dissident journalist.
Yeah.
One of the problems was in the week coming up to this is that nobody was ever sure what, if any, of what the Turkish government was saying was on the up and up, because they kept kind of going back on some things that they claimed was that they had found and had leaked. Like initially there was supposed to have been an Apple Watch recording, like an Apple Watch video recording that he had initiated on his phone or watch rather, before entering the consulate. And it's unclear as to whether or not that is the recording that has been verified, because in the initial stages, people were like, okay, Erdogan, like, your people are saying that this Apple Watch recording exists. Where is it? And they were like, "Oh, we never said that."
And it's kind of weird because whatever recording they have was probably collected in a very clandestine way.
Yeah, they're in a really tricky position, because if they admit that they have this recording, which it sounds like they do, because like you said, the New York Times has verified the existence of something. Then they have to admit to the world that they were spying on the Saudi consulate.
Which is more or less a foregone conclusion at this point anyway. I mean, I'm pretty sure.
It's not something you own up to.
So, of course, this is calling... well, first of all, I mean... These are funny times. So you got people justifiably very upset about this at Saudi Arabia, which doesn't even... Saudi Arabia being a monarchy, so they're not even trying to be democratic. But, you know, then you got the Turks, who are now a dictatorship, Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
In everything but a name.
Yeah, but I feel like he's just going to give up on that pretense pretty soon. And then they're saying, "Hey, you've killed a dissident," whereas we just jail them and make them live in the Poconos and ping coups on them. And then they're trying to get Trump, who's like aspiring. You know what I mean? This is like,
yeah, they want him out of the Poconos real bad. By the way, Gulan.
From Gulan, from the Poconos to a gulag. That didn't make as much sense as I thought it might.
So yeah, Trump is in a weird position where he doesn't know anything about.
Yeah, he's an idiot. That's his.
Yeah, what a fucking idiot. Stupid idiot.
He's not smart, so he doesn't really understand like.
Why is everybody so mad?
Why this is bad? Because I think this is something that if he could get away with it, he would be cool with happening to people who make him mad. Like he's just gonna one day. Graydon Carter is just gonna end up in oil barrels, in like fucking Lunchables containers. Graydon Carter's fucking pinky ring is gonna be dissolving in lye. Because fucking Vanity Fair made fun of him too many times.
And wind up in a Lunchable that will be eaten by, shout out to Lindsay. You're never going to hear this. Lindsay, you're eating the corpses of murdered dissidents.
Jesus Christ.
So this is something that, like, in his deepest fantasy, he probably wishes could happen, but doesn't quite understand, like, the mechanics of getting, like, these pipe-hitting motherfuckers together to do it. So he doesn't understand why this guy getting pulled into a conflict, getting his fingers cut off while he was still alive, and then possibly being dismembered while still alive is something that would be a problem for somebody else.
Yeah.
So he's just like, but they give us so much money. And they give us so many guns and oil.
Now, a lot's being made about Trump's own business ties to the Saudis, and of course that of Kushner as well. But much like the strong economic recovery and the highest job opening rate we've had in years and decades, this has been rolling since the Obama days.
Oh yeah, this has been rolling since forever. Our relationship with the Saudis.
Oh yeah,
it's the special relationship that we have. That's not rooted in any sort of shared Western values or love of democracy, like our special relationships with the UK or Canada or France.
Or it's the Shah of Iran.
Pure transactional greed.
Yeah. This is this is one there's not even any pretense for.
No, and nobody cares. Everybody knows that's what the deal is. That's why, because when he was saying, like, I'm not sacrificing $100 million in arms sales over this, he said that, and so did fucking Lindsey Graham.
Well, it's like, well, as any Yemeni can tell you, it's going to take more than one dead body to get America to stop profiting off of our military arms sales.
Yeah, we still haven't even officially acknowledged that what's happening in Yemen is happening. I have a question for you guys. Had any of you heard of this guy before he got murked?
Nope.
Me neither.
No.
So what the fuck why did they care so much?
Yeah.
Like, why did they care so much? Why are you going to cut that dude's finger off? He was writing boring articles for the Washington Post about how much you suck. People talk about how much you suck all the time, Mohammed bin Salman.
I think
he's
a crisis actor. I think he is just a homeless man they found, and that George Soros hired to be.
This is all a hot bunch of nonsense.
It's the Clintons' fault, really.
This is all Clinton's fault.
Bullshit. Here's my hot take on all of this.
In addition to that, we also had the Elizabeth Warren thing.
What's that? What's this?
God.
We also had the Elizabeth Warren thing.
It's amazing. I try so hard. I've been not reading up on any of this. I've been actively avoiding these headlines because my mood hasn't been great, and yet I still know everything about all of these. It has found me. So. Yeah. Oh, okay. Elizabeth Warren, like so many irritating people, likes to claim that she is 1/1 billionth Cherokee or Navajo or something. I forget.
Sure.
Like I said, I haven't read about it. And Trump was like, "Oh, I'll bet you $1 million that's a load of shit." And she's like, "Oh yeah," and then she had like genealogy.com verify it.
Fucking 23andMe.
Yeah, fucking 23andMe checked it out. And meanwhile, the tribal councils of the United States are like, "Please,
Fuck you, lady.
please stop both of you."
Yeah.
I mean, who is there? Okay. Please enlighten me. Please enlighten me. I don't know. I'm a big dummy. I don't know. Who is there we can look to for hope? Who is there?
Batman.
Who? Batman. Fuck Batman. We'll get to it. Is there anybody out there in the political spectrum that we can look towards? With any sort of idea of decency and genuineness of person.
No.
Cory Booker?
No.
What's Cory Booker done to you?
What is Cory Booker's done nothing to me personally, but he's one of those sort of like in the pocket of big pharma guys that I don't necessarily trust. I mean, I would still vote for him.
Oh, I mean, obviously.
And also, have we talked about how the midterms are coming up?
Yes.
The three of us live in New Jersey, which means we are going to have to hold our nose and vote for Bob Menendez, one of the most cartoonishly corrupt people.
Don't forget Norcross.
And Donald Norcross, yeah. We're going to have to vote for both of those guys.
Guys, we better not criticize Norcross too much. We might wind up in a Saudi consulate in Trenton, or we'll wind up in the fucking Pine Barrens.
You know what that makes me think about?
What's that?
It just makes me want to. Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Plaid Lads, we're going to the movies.
Let's all go to the Pelham.
Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Take.
We are wagging our fingers, doing old time
song.
That's all really great. Okay, so the movie this week is The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
1, 2,
the 1974 American.
Yes, 1974.
74.
1974 American action thriller set in New York City. Yeah, there's some action scenes in it.
It's a caper.
Yeah, caper. I'll take caper.
And it is about a group of men who go by pseudonymous nicknames coded by color, which is something that Quentin Tarantino would reference in Reservoir Dogs, who all wear the same disguise, and they take a New York City subway train hostage and demand that they be given $1 million in ransom, or else they will keep killing people on the train and then just let the train go and hit a wall. And this movie was made back when New York City was broke and didn't have that kind of money, which is something that recurs throughout the film. Mm-hmm. The mayor is famously in this film depicted as a really cheap, neurotic piece of shit who can't figure out how to take a certain amount of the city's budget to put towards a hostage crisis. And when he finally decides to do so, he is sarcastically referred to as the next Fiorello LaGuardia.
Everything about this movie is wonderful. So,
and they are thwarted by none other than Walter Matthau.
I love Walter Matthau so goddamn much.
As a curmudgeonly, grumpy New York City Transit Authority worker, and his partner is Jerry Stiller, who's playing a Puerto Rican guy, which we'll get to.
And the head of the criminals is one Robert Shaw.
Very excellent.
Who, if I may, played a very cold character. He was
wonderful.
Eyes, like doll's eyes. What, Frank?
One of the other...
Want to know how I got this scar?
Go fuck yourself. No. One of the other characters, did you catch this?
He was in Jaws.
That's
what I was doing.
Hold on, Justin.
The worst one of them, did you catch who the worst one was? The one who used the homophobic slur?
What's his name?
That was Hector Elizondo.
Yes.
It was a young Hector Elizondo.
He used lots of slurs.
He used
throughout
lots of slurs
before he became a mystical concierge.
It is full of that delightful. It's delightful. It's New York City. We're all homophobic and racist. I'm walking in.
So before that's one of my favorite things about it. And before we get into that, fuck you, Frank. So we have a spreadsheet where we sort of show where our movies we're going to watch are available to be watched. And for this week, it was shown as being on demand through our cable company or whatever. And so I said, oh, let me just tuck into this. So I found it, and I got about 20 minutes into it before I realized that, I'm watching the 2009 version with fucking John Travolta and Denzel Washington.
How long before Denzel Washington is on screen?
Oh, like 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
It's and I just sat there thinking, no, this cannot be the film for the week. This is terrible.
It's terrible. It famously has a great line where John Travolta says, "Lick my bunghole, motherfucker."
Oh no! Was this the era when he tried to come back and everybody said no, thank you?
Yes, he was trying to be Nicolas Cage.
Oh Jesus, you are no Nicolas Cage.
Sure. That is not a good place to be in.
I miss this kind of writing because this level of writing you don't get anymore. It is this level today would be too self-referential or. This is a hilarious movie.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It is so funny.
But quietly hilarious.
Yeah. And it's fun too. It is a fun watch. Like something entertaining is always happening in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
This was back when the world was run by 50-year-old wheezing men who wore their pants 3 inches below their nipples,
whose hearts all exploded.
Yeah. Oh my god, everybody is just like ancient. This movie looks like it is a flashback scene accomplished with makeup to make everybody look 30 years younger. Everybody.
Now, let me ask you, how old was Walter Matthau in this film?
And
let's
he
check that.
Like 25?
He was 54.
54.
Oh,
he looks 89.
Yeah.
And this is a movie I have never smelled Brill cream without Brill cream being around before. This movie also made me really appreciate my eyeglasses, which for those of you at home
back then.
are more or less the same black plastic frames worn as a like Groucho Marx disguise by the train robbers. The only thing I'm missing is the mustache and the machine gun.
Yeah.
Badass machine guns.
Great machine guns. Question for you. In the beginning of the film, when the experienced conductor is explaining to the trainee like his job, definitely intentional that their dialogue is inaudible, right? Basically inaudible because of the train noises.
Yeah.
I think so. I read up a little bit on the production, and I'm not sure if they meant to capture this, but they did, and therefore it's there for us to talk about, which is they had a lot of trouble because where they filmed this is this abandoned length of line that got turned into the New York Transit Museum, but it was also used for filming all sorts of movies over the years. But the parallel tracks weren't shut down, so they had a lot of trouble with adjacent trains going by, and they kept having to redo takes. There was so much dust in this tunnel. You should really read a quote from Walter Matthau when he talked about the tunnel. He starts riffing on the kinds of bugs he saw, bacteria that haven't been discovered by science yet. But anytime somebody like tripped and fell, or like a rat jumped, it would kick up so much dust that they would have to stop shooting until the dust settled because they couldn't see. So yeah, this movie captured how loud New York City was back then, still is, but like all the engines, all the trucks, all the loud squeaking brakes, the screaming people, like it is just deafening. And I'm not sure how much that was on purpose, but it's there and it works.
Yeah, we should say, just as a matter of elucidating the plot a little bit more, Robert Shaw's character goes by Mr. Blue, and he is revealed to be an special forces mercenary guy who is implied has become sort of nihilistically removed from the world, kind of. And Martin Balsam, the guy who is playing Mr. Green, has a very severe cold, and he is constantly sneezing.
Gesundheit.
And Walter Matthau's character, in contact with the thieves on the train over the phone, keeps hearing Martin Balsam's character sneezing. And Martin Balsam's character is a former Metropolitan Transit Authority employee, or New York Transit Authority, what they used to call it back then, who was laid off, and he's doing this job to take the money from the city that laid him off. And that becomes important at the very end, when one of my favorite final shots in the history of film happens.
Now, I want to bring this up now.
Yeah.
So I have Tom just did it. I have one of my favorite things ever. It's my Mount Rushmore of faces. Now, I understand that Mount Rushmore is made of faces, but these are better faces. One is Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining, which I will do for you now, Frank.
Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good. It's more like...
Yes.
This is useless for the podcast, fellas.
Now, late in the film, a new addition came into my life when Robert Shaw, instead of being captured, decides to commit suicide.
Do you have the death penalty in New York?
Yes. So he electrocutes himself, and he does one of these.
Awesome.
You don't have the hand up, the slowly shaking jazz hand with the effect smoke coming off him,
which is incredible. And then I thought, that's all I need from this movie. But then at the very end, in a Columbo fashion, Walter Matthau is interrogating this guy, and then he's like, "Wait a minute," and he comes back in and he gives a little face like a meow.
It wasn't a little face; that was the biggest face in film. Literally, he doesn't say a word.
It was the face of wah wah.
Like, I got you, buddy. Because at the end of the movie, Martin Balsam's character is trying to hide the money
he oven, got. Slapstick style.
Yeah, in his oven in his shitty apartment, because shock of all shocks, all of the thieves turn on each other at the end right before Robert Shaw commits suicide by stepping on the third rail, and they have to kill Hector Elizondo. So Martin Balsam takes the money and runs. And he's the one who gets pretty much all of the money because everybody else ends up dead. So as he's stuffing it in his oven, Walter Matthau and Hector Elizondo, playing an Hispanic person, which we have to get to, come to investigate.
No, Frank. When they arrive, he's literally has poured the money onto his bed and is rolling around in the money.
Yes.
And I believe he was swimming in it. A la Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah.
And Martin Balsam's character does a just convincing enough job to get Walter Matthau to leave. And then he sneezes because he's had a cold throughout the whole movie. Walter Matthau says, "Gesundheit," opens the door back up, and just through the crack of the door, Walter Matthau's craggy old droopy dog face doesn't say a word, like Justin said, just stares at him.
He says something with those eyes. Yeah. You little scamp.
And what's great is this is a movie about working people, just sort of average looking at, like, people don't look like this in movies anymore.
That's true.
It is a who's who of character actors, and it's a beautiful thing.
And can we talk about the accents for a moment? I'm whacking here. Shut up. These are, I'm not sure if they're even real. Like, can accents be that thick?
It does have feel like a bunch of British actors doing a movie set in the Midwest. So I'll think of an American American accent.
It's funny because like,
forget about it.
you kind of don't hear real New York accents in movies set in New York anymore. The only time you hear New York accents is, like Justin said, when British actors have to be American, because it's one of the two American accents they can do is like vaguely New York or Southern. So you don't really, and in movies about New York, people just talk regular because like everybody's a transplant in New York now. Like nobody's like been born and raised in the Bronx. Hey, Brooklyn, represent, kind of a thing.
Right.
Nobody says chocolate anymore.
One thing I love about this movie, sort of old New York, maybe New York ahead of its time. We talked about its just relentless everything-ism. Racism, sexism, homophobia.
Yeah.
And it's just played for, look at these delightful scamps.
But the thing is, though,
racism.
Here's the thing, though. Like, this movie was 1974. Nobody, like, hardly anybody was thinking about PC shit. And here on the train, there's the Black Vietnam veteran with the Pharrell Williams hat. There's the Puerto Rican woman who doesn't speak English. There's the floozy broad who Mr. Gray starts trying to pick up at one point. There's the mother with her children who's hysterical.
There's the cop that's just stuck down there.
Yeah,
the black cop.
The black cop.
Who's chasing after the train.
Yeah,
and like they talk about race in a way. I do not want to be one of those guys who starts saying like PC is politically correct stuff is counterproductive. But the fearlessness with which all these characters address all of their bigoted stuff and biases kind of is self-evident and self-revealing. Like the asshole in the command center who's just like, oh, female cops, what are they good for? She can't find her gun in her purse. And like the black or the black cop who's in the tunnel, he's just like, you better tell these guys I'm down here. I'm kind of hard to see in the dark.
Which I honestly appreciated though that moment, because it's like, that's
he probably would have been shot.
I think this is a perfect example of a film that is full of racism and sexism and all of that, but the film itself is not racist or sexist.
It's weird. It's weirdly like woke for 1974.
Yeah,
but kind of like New York was.
Yeah. That being said,
go ahead.
That being said, I wanted to read off the cast list names for the characters that are actually trapped in the subway.
Yes.
And it's the maid, the mother, the homosexual, the secretary,
who's the
delivery boy.
I think it's the black guy.
Black guy. No. The black guy is the pimp. Then there's the hooker, the old man, the older son, the Spanish woman, and the alcoholic.
I love the alcoholic, by the way.
The alcoholic
she's the true protagonist of this film.
It's such a broad comedic thing, but it
Very
fits perfectly. That she has been drunk and passed out during this whole thing, and wakes up at the end. It's like, we're at this stop already. You fucking movie. Fuck you.
It's great. Although we have to say, the most racist line in the movie is kind of, and speaking of it being sort of woke for 1974, the most racist thing that gets said in the movie, arguably, is sort of immediately followed up with a comeuppance. It's in the beginning, Japanese bullet train investors are looking into the New York subway, and they're being shown around by Walter Matthau. It is made to be understood to Walter Matthau that they can't speak English because they're not speaking to him as he's talking.
Follow me, dummies. Follow me.
Yeah. They're just, and he's talking to them. He's being insulting. And they're just kind of politely nodding and bowing to him the whole time. And to dismiss them as the action of the movie begins, Walter Matthau says something to the effect of, let's get these monkeys upstairs. And then they immediately sort of get back at him by speaking English.
Yeah, we'll show ourselves.
Yeah,
we'll show ourselves upstairs.
Yeah, that's like, again, it's just like, the characters are bigoted. Like Justin said, the characters are bigoted, but I'm not sure the movie is. I don't think the movie's not.
No.
I don't think the movie was. I also simultaneously don't think the movie was trying to change anybody's minds.
Yes, I had that thought. Is that I think all of the racism and all of that is played for laughs. It's almost like like I was saying, like, look at these adorable little racist people all living together in one big old city.
Yeah,
we're New York. We're racist, but we're adorable. You know,
it's like the Canterbury Tales. It's just like everybody's like it's a variety of people, and they're all terrible in their own way. Fucking A. It was just delightfully awful. Everybody's dad was in this movie.
Here's something I wanted to bring up. The plan that these guys had is simple. It's a simple plan that was easily foiled.
Very easily.
Are they a bunch of idiots?
Well, I think that's another joke of the movie. Is they're seen to be sort of good at it for the majority of it, and that's what makes them scary. And then you realize, oh no, this is a stupid plan that could go wrong very easily, and they're just kind of petty thugs.
Yeah.
And they're not actually that good at their job. And it's kind of implied that Robert Shaw's only doing this because he wants to die.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just like straight up kills himself at the end.
Yeah.
That seemed a little nonsensical to me, but then I just kind of... Yeah,
I think it took you saying that, Frank, to really make it some sense to me.
There's a scene earlier on where Mr. Green is talking to Mr. Blue, and he's like, what if they don't make it? We're gonna, then a lot of people are gonna die today. And he says, including us. He's like, very possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I did a bit of a death mission. I mean, this guy was like a fucking African mercenary dude. He's probably got a lot of demons.
You might even say, like, if you really looked at him, that he had black eyes, like doll's eyes. What? It's from Jaws.
Robert Shaw was in other movies.
I've only seen him in Jaws. He's also in a James Bond movie. Now let me.
He was also in Robin and Marion. He was the sheriff of Nottingham.
Speaking of Jaws, this movie was directed by, what's his name, Sargent?
Joseph Sargent. He directed the worst Jaws movie / best Jaws movie.
Jaws the Revenge.
Michael Caine as Hoagie.
I wanted to bring this up. That all of these movies, what would you call it? This wouldn't be a heist movie. This is more like a bank robbery movie.
Yeah, it's not a heist movie because in heist movies you're rooting for the heisters.
Yeah, which I mean, I kind of a little was
Italian Job-esque, maybe.
See, that's more of a heist. I think this is way more of a, but it's all like a similar kind of thing. But all of these movies are all the
Air
same.
Force One,
maybe.
yeah, kind of Air Force One, a little bit, kind of Die Hard.
Yes.
A predecessor to Die Hard.
Now, all of these movies follow the same exact plot beats, right? But which makes, like I was thinking so much of Inside Man.
I just rewatched it before I watched this. Oh my god,
it's a great fucking movie, and I had the same tone.
It did, and I think Inside Man was a very conscious homage to this film.
Yes. But all of these movies are almost exactly the same, which really makes you think, especially this, which is like much earlier on than a lot of the ones that we know, makes you appreciate that it all has to do with the writing, the characterization, and the tone. And for this movie, which was my first time seeing it, I found it just utterly delightful. And
it's very fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's the funnest collection of swearing, murder, misogyny, racism, violence, theft. It was just a pure delight. I was grinning ear to ear watching those people die and be robbed. And
it was.
Yeah, truly.
I did want to talk about that because it's like this movie is a movie that does not act as moral instruction, except in the sort of fundamental goodness and stick-to-itiveness of its sort of earthier characters.
Shh.
And
That was it.
shut the fuck up,
You, Frank. Lonely, lonely, I just peed. Lonely, lonely, I just peed. I just peed with my dick.
Is this making the
It
episode?
was super weirdly thick. I think I may have been sick.
You might have a UTI.
Oh, man. Okay, so this week we are talking about the 2004 sophomore album of Leslie Feist, who performs under the name Feist. Let It Die. This is a record, mostly originals, but there are a few cover tunes on this, produced in a collaboration with a serial collaborator, Chili Gonzalez, the music producer, engineer, etc. This record, yes, I believe, was simultaneous with Feist's involvement with Broken Social Scene.
We could forget.
Before the biggest single off this probably being singles, one probably being Mushaboom, and Secret Heart probably being the other one. So before the Reminder, when Feist blew up like so many allergic people stung by bees, and it introduced a very kind of a bizarre sonic aesthetic.
It's a very eclectic album, which she her first. Well, now that I think about it, her other albums aren't very eclectic. Anyway, sorry to
No,
interrupt.
they're a little more homogenous
Yeah.
than this one.
Well, this one, in the sort of the way it's composed and arranged, does have a common thread, which is fat on the bottom, thin on top. It's got this super sort of a Feist trope that sort of comes back with her records as she goes forward. Probably the most similar record to this record, at least in ways, speaking in terms of how it sounds, is probably her newest record, Pleasure.
Yeah.
But like a big fat sub bass that if you don't have a proper sound system, you're probably not even going to hear at all. And then on top, very sparse, lilting little sprinkles of guitar, and then her voice carrying it, her wonderful voice.
And then she's playing around with genre. You've got like canned lounge music. You've got soulful, folky sadness,
all interlaced with like smatterings of, I'm not sure if it's more Euro disco or West Coast gangster rap synth cues.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's just really fun, bizarre record. I just looked up the personnel. A total of 4 people were musicians on this record. Obviously, with overdubbing, they did more than stuff. Chili. Gonzalez is the big contributor here in terms of arranging.
Has he been with her in Metals?
That's a good question. I'll look that up while Frank says something.
What's cool about this album, and sort of all of Feist's albums in general, I feel, is that the star is although less so in the new one, I think, the star is really her voice.
Yeah.
And the way that, but in less of an ostentatious way than that saying normally applies to other singers, because she's not a super showy vocalist.
Yeah, the star is the quality of her voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, her voice is a very interesting instrument into itself. Mm-hmm. And she just sort of shapes albums and songs and moods around that. And it's cool. And I hope that she gets back together with Broken Social Scene soon, because she wasn't on the last album.
She was.
Was she?
She was. She did not tour with the band afterward, but she did come back for the tracking. She was not on the previous record. Was it Compassion Rock album? She was on Hug of Thunder, though, I believe.
I'm waiting for her to get back with Peaches.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
Now, what is our personal... I'll start. Our personal relationships to this album. This was a enormous album for me. I remember very vividly waking up at 5 in the morning, to get ready for school, waiting for the school bus, and MTV2 Subterranean was on. And,
oh boy, that takes me back.
and the music video for Mushaboom was on, which is a very kind of if you're in that half waking, half sleeping state, is very surreal, very like Michel Gondry. And from there, I was in love with her music, and her herself. I sent her a message on MySpace saying I loved her.
Whoa.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah, say that more slowly and clearly so we can all make you feel
Hang
embarrassed.
on.
She hasn't gotten back to me.
Wait, what did it say?
Say I love you.
No.
No.
What did it say?
It's weird
What
that
did it
I
say?
remember
Do you
this.
remember? I don't
don't
remember
this.
anything.
Leslie Feist, I'm not sure if you said that, but it's like I just want you to know that I'm in love with you. That is all.
Oh Jesus, that sounds like something I would say. I have a lot of regrets, fellas. I'm a different person now.
I don't think you are. Now you could call this like well, in a good way, because if a 20-year-old did that, that's creepy nice guy behavior. But you were like 15.
Yeah, I was
so
a
that's kind of
child.
sweet. That's kind of like a kid.
I was a child, but this was a huge album for me. Especially the song Lonely, Lonely, That Is You. Shut up. I'm not done. Lonely, lonely, that is you. Which
Jesus.
nobody at that time influenced my own personal music creation more than Feist. And my last thing I'll say before I leave, I'm leaving, guys. Sorry, is that the first time that I've always been a big boy, I've always been a chub zone. The first time I lost a significant amount of weight, I went from like. At that time, was I that big? Maybe. From like 250 down to like 215. All I did was I would go in my room and lift weights, swearing it out. Oh, yeah, one more, yeah, spotting myself listening to Let It Die, this album.
I thought you were gonna say go in my room and jerking off while listening to Let It Die.
Yeah, it's well, he could have, because it's a pretty fucking sensuous album.
It's a sensuous CB.
All of her albums are more or less.
Well, okay, like this is because I got on the Feist train. I was aware of Feist. I liked Feist. I knew how much Justin liked Feist, but it took 2011's Medals for me to get on fully the Feist train.
Is that true?
Well, I was aware of Feist. I had Let It Die. I never really got too much into it. I was aware of The Reminder. Everyone was aware of The Reminder. Yeah. That album was fucking gargantuan and steamrolled the earth. But Medals is when
I should have done that album.
I told you.
One,
You should have
two,
done that
three,
album.
4, Pelham, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm Walter Matthau.
Trench-coated robbers. Yes. Yeah, so I got into Feist with Medals, and so I've never really forged too personal a connection with this record, and I was familiar with a lot of the songs, obviously, like Let It Die, Mushaboom, the Biggies, Lonely, Lonely, Secret Heart. But I kind of listened to it through a few times this week, and man, it's too much for me. It's too sexual. It's too
Oh, I thought you were gonna say too sad.
Oh, it's too sad. I literally spent like an hour-long walk in the woods with just the refrain of the chorus of Let It Die stuck in my head, and I thought I was going insane. It was just over and over again. I won't sing it because I'm not Justin.
I remember so specifically listening to that song, and I had a crush on, I'm not going to say her name, but you might remember her. Her family owned a motel.
Bleep.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And she was on my bus, and I had such a huge crush on her, and I would just listen to Let It Die, and my heart would break.
Saddest part.
I don't think I ever spoke to her.
Wait, you never spoke to her?
No, she was older.
Okay.
Much as the star. I thought she was our age. Anyway, so Frank, what's your relationship to
So
this
my
Feist?
relationship to this album is like the rest of the world. I jumped on the Feist train with The Reminder. Around 2007, I was still in high school.
Fucking poser.
And I retroactively got into this album pretty much immediately after. Although I was aware of Broken Social Scene, I was not aware she was in Broken Social Scene. At the time, I was just starting to dip my toe into liking good music. Because I had spent the previous several years being the guy who would listen to WMMR alone in his room and listen to like classic rock and hair metal and shit.
I mean, that's better than a lot of us. I was super into Good Charlotte.
Come on, baby, but now strip me out.
So I was just starting to get into good music at the time.
You want it all, but you can't have it.
Yeah, that one. That was a big one.
I'm going hungry.
Even flow. Wait, you were saying, Frank.
Anyway, I was saying, I got into Feist with The Reminder. I got into this album pretty much immediately afterwards because I saw it was the album that came before that. And then the year after that came out, I went to college in 2008. And then the recession hit.
Oh, boy.
But I started to associate this album specifically and Musha Boom specifically as like a way to get girls to like me. By saying that I like this album and this song, I thought that would be like sensitive Frank.
Interesting.
Girls like me because I listen to indie music.
So
please listen to me, cute girl with bangs.
Shit record, Metals is better, Pleasures is better, even still. Fuck that shit!
Metals is better!
What?
Dr. Frasier Crane has gotten himself into a bit of a pickle, guys. Do you know why? Do you know why?
A little bit of pickle.
Because a local columnist has written a negative article about him, and Frasier just can't let it go. This all culminates with a fist fight that does not take place. We'll get to it. In Frasier Season 1, Episode 4, maybe. I hate Frasier Crane.
Thank you.
That's the name of the episode.
Thank you, Justin.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
That was excellent. Sit down, Justin. Put your shirt back on.
No.
So, yeah. This one's a bit weird.
It is.
It's fun though.
I've never really watched the show in order, and so I've seen them all kind of like piecemeal. I was not expecting this one to be episode number 4 of the entire series.
Yeah.
This kind of reads more like a silly late season, like know the end's coming, kind of wacky plot line. This is more like Frasier Crane Day than anything.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. Let me think. What's the B plot here?
So the B plot is, which I believe returns in multiple episodes, is that
It does, and it becomes like a big joke.
Yeah, that Martin is continually working on a case from 20 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
And he very uncomfortably. There are a lot of air quote hooker jokes.
Yeah, this was like a early 90s, if you ever saw it, treatment of sex work.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable to my 2018 ears. But I mean, it fits with the character of Martin Crane, who is
like a hard-boiled.
Yeah.
Ex-cop MAGA voter.
Martin Crane would have been Walter Matthau if Seattle had a functioning underground tram system. If it was the taking of monorail 001, because there's only one monorail and it goes in like a quarter-mile circle in downtown completely uselessly.
How did they get around?
Write it?
Do you want to make that spec script?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monorail.
How do they get around in Seattle? Is it all just buses?
Yeah.
Well, mostly also like walking and bicycles. And have you heard of cars? You fucking idiot!
I have.
Jesus Christ!
Wow.
Driving in cities.
They have a delightful bus system. Seattle's the kind of town where when you get off the bus, you have to thank the bus driver.
Wow.
And I wasn't sure if people were fucking like joking or kidding, but like when you get on the bus, you say hello. They talk to you. They look at you, which is really fucking weird for a bus driver to make eye contact. And then when you get off, no matter who you are, what's going on, you go, thank you. And I'm just sitting there. I've never done this because obviously if you did this in an East Coast city, you would be murdered outside the bus for being a nerd.
Yep.
So also, we don't ride the bus. I'm just throwing that out there, guys. If we can't take a train to it, we're driving. Because who the fuck can figure out how buses work? Fuck that shit. But anyway, and I get off, and I don't know like what to do with my vocal track to say thank you. So I end up shouting, "Thank you!" as I get off the bus.
I have a question, fellas.
Yeah.
About Daphne's psychic abilities. In this episode, she is looking at pictures of the murder victim in Martin's case. Mm-hmm. And she's getting all of these different things from it.
Oh, she had 4 brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, later on in that, she then noticed like she senses a man coming, and it's
in wingtip shoes.
Mm-hmm. and it's Frasier walks in. And she says, "Oh, I sometimes get things mixed up." And Martin just looks at her like she's a fucking idiot. When she was psychically seeing Frasier walk in, this is direct proof that her psychic abilities are real.
Is it direct proof, or does she just kind of like guessing?
I think just as a point here, I've never thought about this before. How the hell does she know Frasier's coming?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, Martin should show her a little bit of fucking respect.
I think she was just guessing.
I also think that we're not entertaining the possibility that Frasier was the murderer.
That's true.
I mean,
he does have a
voice go
murderer's forehead.
He is Sideshow fucking Bob, by the way.
He is Sideshow Bob.
And this was 20 years ago.
Speaking of Simpsons.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking of Simpsons, Joe Mantenga is the columnist who hates him.
Oh, Derek Mann. Man About Town.
Mm-hmm. He's got such a delightful, makes sense, cartoony, threatening voice.
So Frasier accepts Fat Tony's challenge, and he goes home, and Martin's very chuffed and proud of him. And then Frasier says, "Well, of course I'm not going through with it." And Martin's completely devastated and disappointed, and says, "Well, you gave him your word. You said you're going to do a thing. You're going to do a thing." And shames him into going through with it, and then he does. But Martin then goes behind his back and has his old cop buddies come and break up the fight before it can start.
Which I found incredibly sweet.
It was very sweet.
I was moved.
And it had one of my favorite bits, which is one of I think it's an incredibly characteristic Frasier kind of joke, where the old white-haired police officer comes up to Marty and says, "Okay, so we broke up this fight for you. Thanks a lot. Hey, we're going to be meeting at Duke's later if you want to come by." Martin's like, "Yeah, I think I will come by." And you know why? Because the Crane boys don't take clarinet lessons anymore, which is this like callback to an earlier thing of how Frasier welched out of a fight. And then he goes, "Oh wait, you weren't in my precinct."
Yeah,
you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
And that was the end of the episode. Like, that's a great joke to end an episode on.
And there's something about that. There's something is delightfully self-aware about that I think is so indicative of Frasier's comedic writing.
I think there's also, especially in this episode, in terms of the comedy of Frasier, is absurd off-screen humor. This is, I think, we've had some of Maris, but we're getting even more of Maris in this episode. But we also have at this this fight that's about to happen, there are people are gathering around. There is a mariachi band,
Yeah.
which we then hear, so we know it's true. The show doesn't get very surreal on screen, but off screen, it's amazing.
This also had the continuation of what would be a series-long arc of Niles' infatuation with Daphne, which we have to call into question, and the show addresses this in a later season, where Maris is meant to come to a nice family sit-down dinner, and we find out from Niles that a ridiculous reason is why she cannot come, and she's excused, and it's just Niles by himself. But we have to wonder, did Niles himself engineer why Maris couldn't be there so he could interact with Daphne without the jealous eyes?
I don't think so.
It is a gross thing. It's a problematic thing, but for some reason, Frasier is the voice of reason, which makes it all right. There is somebody on the show calling Niles out on his disgusting behavior.
Oh, stop staring! Oh, I wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of Niles, though, this is the introduction of a similar but far less series-wide arc of the antipathy between Niles and Roz.
Yeah.
In a hilarious scene.
Don't they wind up fucking at one point?
No.
Frasier
That's
almost.
Lilith.
He fucks Lilith.
He fucks Lilith once.
Which, whoa.
We'll get to.
Credit to Frasier for taking that like a champ.
We're doing it. Yeah.
No, Frasier Crane for taking that like a champ.
Yeah.
Frank, use your mouth and say things. I feel like you've been underrepresented in this segment.
Oh, no, this was a really good episode, kind of. It was a little bit weird, like I said. I think it's good building blocks, especially because you forget that it didn't build to the Niles and Daphne thing right away. And it kind of gets the ball rolling on... We'll talk more about it as the show goes on, but it is a problematic thing that becomes a not problematic thing.
Yeah,
but
because the show
still
addresses it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think around the middle of it, the show realized it's kind of icky.
Yeah.
And there's not much you can do about that, and they tried to write their way out of that as best they could. But it starts with a man being a married man being infatuated by this woman, not telling it to her, and then just kind of stalking her for years.
Yeah.
The way they would, and obviously they're the people writing the show, but it all made a lot of sense. But basically their solution, because they did kind of reckon with this idea in an episode where Maris's divorce lawyers were contending that Niles had a secret infatuation with Daphne for years. Basically the way they wrote themselves out of it was by just saying that Maris was a monster. And Frasier gives a speech about if that marriage failed, it wasn't because of you. But obviously they wrote that.
But
obviously they wrote that.
But they also address, I think, the more problematic issue, which is the infatuation itself.
The nice guy thing, putting women on a pedestal.
Yes,
and
which I think they do. They're one of the only situational comedies I've seen actually handle that idea of putting somebody on a pedestal and not seeing the reality. But we'll get to it.
That's from the late seasons. Justin doesn't like these seasons, but that's from one of the late seasons feels episodes that fucking get me. The one,
no, I love those. I just don't care for when, spoiler alert, Niles has a heart attack.
It's a great episode. You're insane. That makes me cry.
I wish he died.
You suck.
Fuck Frasier.
Fuck Frasier.
Fuck Frasier. How are we feeling, fellas?
I'm feeling okay. And you know why I'm feeling okay? And this is actually slightly related to Frasier. It's because I've been watching a British sitcom on Hulu called Friday Night Dinner.
Do tell.
It is very similar to Frasier. It is like if every episode of Frasier was the Ski Lodge episode in terms of like structure.
Nice.
It's about a middle-class Jewish family in a London suburb, and their two sort of shitty prankster sons meet two insane, weird parents for Friday night Shabbat dinner every week, and every episode is that dinner.
Nice.
And a bunch of insane sort of like dark British comedy things happen every week, and it's very structurally tight, like the Ski Lodge episode.
I'm not gay.
Yeah, there's lots of like incident and farce to it that's very Frasier-esque, but it's British, so it's a lot meaner and funnier in some ways.
Nice.
It's a great show, Friday night dinner.
And that has cured your emotional woes.
That, and I'm making some headway on the job stuff. Had my second interview on Tuesday. So good. Hopefully, good things happening. But yeah, what about you two?
I'll let you start.
Me?
Yeah.
Me?
Yes, you.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm going to have a new album out soon.
Wonderful.
Welcome to
Underscore.
Wonderful.
Welcome to.
3 days ago, it was a 3-song EP that had a shit ton of shit needing to be done. And now it's an 8-song album with 5 songs done. But those original 3 still needing work. So that's going well. I'm going to start work on the Christmas album very soon. And I've been watching a lot of Twilight Zone, Star Trek: The Next Generation, and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
The Last Airbender. Yeah. What? Did you ever watch that before now?
I've never seen it before.
Oh
and
my God, it's so good.
Brilliant. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. So, listeners, spoiler alert. We're going to be doing like mini episodes, kind of, where we just talk about random stuff at some point. And I think a plan is me and Justin are going to talk about cartoons.
Yes.
Because we are adult men in close to our 30s who like to watch cartoons.
I feel like I'm a child at heart, though. You know? I mean, like, I'm young at heart.
Which makes it worse.
Yeah.
Makes it
Tom,
worse.
How are you feeling, buddy?
Right now, I have the distinct feeling that I need to pee.
Same here.
But we'll pee together. We'll play swords. I don't know. I've been autumn has struck here in New Jersey finally.
It's beautiful. It's getting a little chilly out. It's getting to feel like the season.
And I don't know about you fellas, but that album, The Reminder, sure puts me in a depression for some reason. The Reminder, let it die. So I don't know, maybe a little blue. A little blue with this little autumn breeze.
Feeling a little sad,
perhaps,
with dots in there.
No.
Seasonal affective disorder.
Oh, I see what you did there. I'm gonna take that again. I'm doing okay. All right, doing okay. Cool. All right, so
Cool.
I'm Tom.
Cool.
I guess I've got a band. It's called Elbow Wake, not Elbow Wache, or it can be Elbow Wache, whatever you want it to be. But that's at elbowwake.bandcamp.com. That's Justin over here.
I'm Justin. You can find me at welcome_to_Wonderfalls on Instagram, and welcome to wonderfalls.bandcamp.com.
Frank has a Twitter, but it's at redacted.
It's private right now. It's at Frank McDevitt. It's private right now because I'm still unemployed and I'm job searching. It'll become unprivate when the job search has concluded.
You don't want all those Trevor Noah-esque problematic tweets.
To be discovered by potential employers.
You can find us. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Play. We're on all of the things you want to be. We're at Instagram, Twitter, YouTube,
Twitter,
all of that.
at Plaid Lad's Pod on Twitter. Our Twitter is starting to become a little bit more active. Follow us. Give us a follow. Talk to us on there.
Follow us.
We'd
talk
love
to
hear
us.
from you.
Subscribe. And if I might say so, next week,
Yes.
the next time you hear us,
Yes.
we will be doing, for a very spooky Halloween, Hexon, or The History of Witches, a Swedish film that's very spooky. And we are doing Fear of Music Talking Heads.
And also Frasier.
Oh yeah, Frasier. Oh, it's the theme song. Take it again. We are the Plaid Lads, and we will do what you want to. We are a man. We are the guys, also the women and everyone else. Everything's great in the world of Plaid Lads, and we're gonna do a little dance. Look at me dance. I'm dancing right now, doing the dance for you. You can't see it, but it's really cool. I love you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So long.
Better episode this week.
Oh, fuck. All right, now let's do one where I'm recording.